I was speaking at a business and marketing conference 10 years ago in Chicago. And at the end of my presentation, I was pitching my $155 million marketing swipe file. The swipe file was this ugly box of all of the direct response marketing, sales, advertising, my crazy promotions, my free pizza promotions, my $100 jewelry gift certificate giveaways, everything and anything under the sun that I had used to sell over $155 million in products and sales, and to become number one in several different industries, that one focusing on the insurance industry. I had joined my father's small town insurance agency after selling my hockey team. I didn't even have an insurance license, and I joined my dad's firm, and we literally tripled the size, and most importantly, the bottom line profits of the small town agency in 36 short months. And I was selling my swipe file, the actual, what I called at the time, weapons of mass production: flyers, postcards, referral program, DVDs of my TV videos, radio ads, phone scripts, employee reward programs, my hiring help wanted ads, all the whole ugly mess. And it was interesting. I sold tens of thousands of dollars from the stage that day, and I really didn't think anything of it. I donated the money to the 3 charities that I supported back home in Canada. So I wrote a check for $12,000 to the animal shelter. They bought a new washer, new dryers, new things for the shelter for the dogs and cats that they were rescuing. I remember when I handed them that check, they were used to donations of $20, $100, and I handed them a check. I was on the board of directors at the time, and I said, "What would you do if you had a donation for $12,000? And then I handed them a check, and boy, could those people make $12,000 go a long way. They taught me frugality. They taught me the value of a dollar. Man, oh man, they would buy with that $12,000. They would help hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of animals. I cut a check for several thousand to the children's literacy program. That was one of my big ones when I was in the insurance business. There was a program in our community run by a family friend who was called Grow with Books. And the bottom line was, every dollar donated, she was able to buy a book for one child in school. And that would be a child that was having a problem learning to read. These kids were, kindergarten and up. Grow with Books. $1 equaled one book. So I remember giving her checks for $1,000 meant 1,000 books. 5,000 meant 5,000 books. Like, it was such a powerful program. And then her challenge was to get mom and dad to actually read to the child. And she was a teacher, just a wonderful lady who ran that program. And then, of course, the other one was the Rotary Club, where I was the vice president and the president. And we used to raise money for different charities through the Rotary Club, including the Guatemala Stove Project. What I focused on was in our own community, the food bank. At the time, I was a huge supporter of the local food bank. This was before there were employees. This was before our food bank had become a business in the poverty industry. I actually do not any longer donate money to the food bank in our community. Those volunteer positions, several of them have become paid positions with people using it as a job. And now that food bank in our community is part of the poverty industry, what I call it, which is a massive industry. And I no longer support it because the money doesn't get where it's supposed to get to. At least a large percentage of it doesn't anymore. So be very aware. It's important to give. It's important to do your homework on how much of your money actually gets to the people in need. So nonetheless, I sold a whole bunch of these $155 million swipe files. There was this rush to the back of the room, and my wife was there, and she laughed at the time because she said she thought everybody was leaving. She thought that my talk was so poorly received that she thought the stampede to the back of the room was everybody leaving. So I thought that too. So admittedly, it was a shot to my ego for about 3 minutes. I'm like, well, that went very well. And, you know, everybody's stampeding to the back of the room to leave because of this lunatic up on stage talking about selling and marketing and all this other stuff. So it was a stampede, thankfully, to the back to buy. And I sold it for $2,000 that day, which was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I should have sold it for a lot more, but nonetheless, I helped a lot of people, I believe. So the funny story about this is I walk into our agency, McLean Insurance, about 2 months later. And I would just walk in. Sometimes I'd arrive at 11. Sometimes I'd arrive at 6 in the morning. Sometimes I'd arrive in the afternoon. Sometimes I wouldn't arrive at all. And I walk in the back door on this particular morning, and it's like 10:30 in the morning. Beautiful day. I walk in the back door. I always go in the back door. And there's where my sales guys are, my 3 sales guys, my 3 rainmakers. And the 2 of them or 3 of them come up to me, and they're like, Coach, they're like, you won't believe this one. It's always, you won't believe this one, right? They have the best job in the world. They get to talk to people on the phone all day, every day. And you want to talk about stories and situations and calamity. Just be on the phone with people all day, every day. So they come up and they're like, oh, Coach, you won't believe this one. And I'm like, what is it today? They're like, we've had 11 phone calls from Arkansas. We've had 11 phone calls from Arkansas. And I'm like, Arkansas? I said, as far as I know, we're not in the yellow pages. We're not sending flyers. We don't mail postcards. We're not on TV or radio. We aren't doing a lot of marketing in Arkansas. We weren't doing any marketing south of the border. But so it's interesting. They're like, yeah, people are calling for a quote on their home and car from Arkansas. So we record all our phone calls, right? I don't ever leave anything to chance. I don't leave anything to freelancing. So I said, oh, pull those calls up, Sandra. So Sandra, my CEO, pulls these calls up, and sure as hell, you got this half dozen calls in the morning from Arkansas. And these people are calling, can I please have a quote on my home and my car and my RV and all this stuff. So just like normal in our office, we average 340 calls a day at our peak. 340 glorious calls. They weren't all sales calls. They were service calls and they were sales calls. But that kept my 3 salesmen pretty busy. They would have over 100 calls per day between them. So it was go, sell, build, service. So we listened to these phone calls and we realized that one of the gentlemen who bought my swipe file in Chicago had copied it, right? Which is fine by me. When you buy my swipe file, you can swipe, you can deploy. I think I humorously said at the time, please change the photo. If you're going to use my $5 million flyer. I had this famous goldenrod color flyer, and it was the flyer. It's a goldenrod flyer that says, "Who else wants to save up to 37% instantly on their home and car insurance?" And I ran this thing. Not a word was changed for a decade. And I called it my $1 million flyer, because every year that flyer brought in a net 7 figures, over $1 million, not gross, net. That was our go-to. That was our bread and butter, was that $1 million ugly goldenrod flyer. I started mailing 500 of those a month when I first started marketing, and then I got up to 1,000 a month, then 2,000 a month, then 5,000 a month, because that flyer would consistently get us 4 to 1. For every dollar we invested, it would bring us 4 net dollars. So I was like, okay, let's scale. The problem with scaling then was the problem now. We just had to hire people to sell. So once we attacked that, we eventually went from 500 flyers to 140,000 flyers a month. Think about that. 140,000 flyers per month. If you lived within 200 miles, if you live within 200 miles of our agency, you got this ugly flyer in your mailbox. It was just bulk mail, folded over. You got this ugly flyer in your mailbox 12 times a year. There's that Michael McLean again. There's the no BS insurance guy. You know, what's he doing? My God. And then not long later, they're picking up the phone and calling. So I was omnipresent within 200 miles. Ugly goldenrod flyer. So this guy, this agent in Arkansas, just took the flyer. He's smart. Why change what works? But he didn't listen to my advice. I think he changed the photo, but you know what he didn't change? He didn't change the phone number. So he would have handed this to some graphic artist or somebody, printer, and he would have said, okay, just swipe and deploy. Swipe and deploy. I don't care if you use it. I don't care. Those guys weren't my competitors. They're in a different country, in a different state. So he does it, and I did eventually see the flyer, because we took those 11 quotes and more of them came in. There was over 20 leads when it was all said and done. So the guys said to me, my sales guys, they're like, Michael, what do you want us to do? And I said, call Randy in Arkansas. I think his name was Randy. And I said, make sure, don't waste any of these great leads. I said, just email them to him. So Brock and Brian and they went ahead and they throughout the day they collected these leads. People kept calling, right? And we kept forwarding them on. And just like any flyer, I think he probably mailed 100 or 500 flyers, I forget. And for 3 days, we were in the Arkansas home and car insurance business. And we would just keep sending the leads to Randy. And he was gracious and happy and thankful. Never waste a lead, I told Randy. But he sent me a copy of the flyer later that day. And it was the funniest thing ever, because we put it on the desk and we compared it to the flyer that we used. 10 years, never a single word change. Testimonials on the back, my picture on the front, big headlines, like ugly goldenrod. It worked, right? It worked. So we put him on the desk. He faxes his to us or emails it or scans it, whatever the hell he did. And we put it on the desk, and quite literally, he forgot to change the phone number. So he's got our 1-800 Canada McLean insurance number on there. Call Randy at 1-800 and it's our number. So my dad came in later that day and he loved those stories. Like when I went balls to the wall and bought the company and went crazy with direct response, television, radio, free pizzas, referral programs, TV giveaways. I became the most referred, the most respected, the most talked about, and by my competitors, admittedly, the most despised and hated insurance agent in the country. My competitors hated me. Our competitors despised us. And that was what I was looking for, because these were the type of people that would, squeal to the regulatory board. They were the type of people that would smile to your face at one of these goofy insurance conventions and then turn around and stab you in the back. So I didn't want those people as friends. I wanted them as adversaries. I used them. I drove them to distraction. I would use their whining, their crying, their complaining against them. I would use their hate as fuel. I would use their criticism as fuel. And quite literally, they were drove to distraction. When we were writing, millions of dollars of business every year, their companies were shrinking. Their businesses, their agencies were shrinking. So it was a drive to distraction. So the swipe file, the things I used in that swipe file that Randy bought, made me the most respected, most referred, and most talked about agent in the entire region. And also, and this isn't for everybody, and it might not be for you, it probably isn't for you, it made me also the most criticized, most hated, most vilified agent in the country. You can't be number one at anything unless you wear the villain's hat. I don't care how good it starts out. I don't care how many people, I love Warren Buffett and I love Tom Brady and all these, even these so-called good guys. They're hated by millions. They're criticized by millions. They get threats. They get, just name it. It's like the great saying, there is no success without controversy. There is no success without controversy. And I've always remembered that, and I actually embrace it. I want to be the most respected businessman. I want to be the most talked about entrepreneur. I want to be the most referred entrepreneur. And I want to wear that black hat villain. If a critic, somebody who's never going to give me money. That's the thing about haters and critics and competitors. If they're not giving you money, they don't get a vote. If they're not giving you money, they're not getting a vote. So competitors in your business, they're not giving you money. They don't wish you well. So they don't get a vote. Somebody who's a critic or somebody who's a hater or doesn't like your marketing, that's not somebody who's giving you money. That's not somebody who's buying anything. So they don't get a vote. They do not get a vote. So I just used the direct response marketing that I used in that swipe file was designed for all those things to make me the most respected, most referred, most talked about, and the most hated man in the insurance industry. And I embraced it. I used to send out post-it notes on the front of phone books and newspapers that said the most hated man in insurance. I have those in the swipe file. And then my biggest home run in direct response marketing was the little 3x3 inch magnets that went on the phone books and newspapers. I had a girl come in one time. She said, Michael, the post-it notes that you do each year? She said, we can do magnets now. She says, I have a vendor in, of course, China. I said, really? She said, yeah, I can get these magnets, goldenrod magnets, 3 inches by 3 inches, my face on the front, and it says, the most hated man in insurance. And then it's all testimonials. She says, I can get them for 10 cents. I'm like, okay, 10 cents. She goes, I'll charge you 10 and 10, 20 cents a book, 20 cents a newspaper. And I bought every territory I could get my hands on. All about 400 miles around our agency with that one. Every phone book. People weren't using phone books as much by then, so they would toss the phone book. But guess who was on the front? Yours Relentless. I was on there. They'd take the magnet off and they'd put it on the fridge. My dad would go into commercial homes all the time for years to come, and what would be up on the fridge? The magnet of his son, Yours Relentless. Big goldenrod magnet, most hated man in insurance. So lots of good memories, lots of good stories, and lots of fun. So I'm actually bringing back, dusting off the swipe file for the next week. So starting today, you can purchase the swipe file. It's a physical product. All my products are physical. There's no digital, no downloading, no black hole, none of that stuff. It's paper and ink. So I'm offering it. You can't get it most times. I know some guys own it already, and it's not for everybody. But I'm offering it now for the next 7 days, and I'm going to offer it a special price. I've sold it in the past for $5,000, and mostly I've sold it for $19.97, $2,000, which I screwed myself over selling it from the platform, from the stage at that price. I really messed that up in Australia, and I really messed that up in Chicago. When you have a stampede like that, that's great for the ego, but it means that you priced your product too little. You want stampedes, but not that big a stampede. So that's a story for another day, how I messed that one up. I didn't believe I was worth that much. I didn't believe I was worth $5,000 for my marketing. Even though it made me $155 million, I still had this scarcity mindset at the time. Oh, nobody's gonna buy my product for $5,000. That's too much. You know, money doesn't grow on trees. Nobody here can afford that. And I screwed myself over with that. My thermostat was too low, my mental imagery thermostat. So I worked on that for the last 10, 15 years. And now I price my stuff highest price in the industry, because my stuff works, right? I'm in the trenches. I'm not one of these semi-retired, fuzzy-headed academics who talks about his victories in 1970. I'm not some fake guru who the only thing he does is sell products. Never won a championship, never actually won anything. I'm a guy who's still doing what I do. I'm still building that swipe file. That swipe file contains my insurance marketing, my barbershop marketing, my hockey team marketing, my consulting business, some of Renegade, my old insurance. It's just, you'll never get to all of it. You'd never get to all of it. But the phone scripts in there will automatically increase your closing ratios by, well, you're probably at, 10% if you're any good. We got to 70 with those phone scripts. We closed 7 out of 10 phone calls. 7 out of 10 phone calls, which is regular guys, order takers. The referral program in there, the free pizza, 9,000 free pizzas every Thanksgiving. That letter's in there, that promotion's in there that anybody could do. My $100 free jewelry gift certificate I did with the great Tom Burns. The letter's in there with me with the Santa hat. The $1 million goldenrod flyer is in there. And my postcards, there's a cross sell any business could use, a little yellow card that literally can increase your bottom line profits this year by 30%. Literally 30%. So it's quite a ugly package. It's the whole deal, and I'm putting it on sale this week, and then that's it. I don't keep these things on the market because Leanne has to create them. So if you're interested in buying, investing, and getting your copy of it, instead of $5,000 or $2,000, I'll sell it this week for $9.97, which is a steal. It's all the marketing you ever need in your entire life. That's 1 or 2 products, 1 or 2 policies, whatever it is you're selling. It's like, it's literally pays for itself. You have a chance to 100x. You have a chance to 250x. This isn't a product where, well, Michael, I made a little bit of money with it. If you implement 1 or 2 things, it transforms your business and life. I mean, my newsletters are in there, my client newsletters, my postcards, my upsells, my downsells, social media stuff that I did, just endless press releases that I did to get free publicity. It's all in there. $9.97 for the next 7 days, and then I'll take it off the market again. To get your copy, go to badassswipefile.com. badassswipefile.com. And you can get your copy for $9.97. Leanne will FedEx it to you, or yeah, she'll FedEx it to you. I always send my stuff by FedEx. I try not to depend on the Newmans anymore. They'll toss your stuff and throw it in the dumpster when you're not looking. So I do use FedEx a lot. I should buy shares in that company. So badassswipefile.com. If you're like me and you despise online shopping, I don't do any of that stuff. Zero. I've never been on the Amazon site ever. My wife, if we want to buy something reluctantly from that evil empire, well, she'll do it. She's good at that stuff, but I've never bought anything online ever. Not a book. Mark Andre and Leanne buy my books. I just refuse to participate in any of that stuff. I refuse to use my finite time. The people around me are better at that stuff than I am. So I've never done any online shopping. So if you're like me and you hate that stuff, you don't have to go to badassswipefile.com. You can also just email Leanne. So that's Leanne, Leeann at badassmillionaire.com. Leanne at badassmillionaire.com. Good morning. By the way, her email is below, the link is below this video. You know what? If somebody needs to hear these messages, if you think there's value in any of these messages, please feel free to share them. Share them with your employees, with your friends, with your family, with your older children, with your anybody and everybody that needs to hear, a positive kick in the ass message each day. If you feel there's value, then share these. Subscribe on YouTube. Join my email list. And just, if somebody needs to hear these messages every day, then please feel free to share them. badassswipefile.com. badassswipefile.com or Leanne at badassmillionaire. Good morning. Leanne at badassmillionaire.com. And you have 7 days to make that happen. I'll be back tomorrow with another marketing story. I have another great one today. Could you imagine sending out a flyer and you're so proud of it and you're so excited, like I know what that's like. Today my life's gonna change. 500 flyers are hitting the mailboxes. Tomato cans have no idea about that, by the way. They have no idea what it's like. The people in your house don't even know what it's like to have that excitement when an ad's coming out in a magazine, or you're testing a video, or you're trying a YouTube ad, or you're mailing 100 postcards, and you have that adrenaline like a Super Bowl Sunday, like it's March Madness, and you're just like, oh my God, is it gonna work? Is it gonna fail? Is it gonna win? And then you get a couple phone calls, and I'd be like, we're doing it. We're not failures. And you're criticized all the time for direct response, right? So unprofessional and so embarrassing for the industry that you're in, embarrassing for the family, and then all of a sudden, hundreds and thousands of phone calls start coming in, and all of a sudden, it's that attaboy that you needed. People were knocking you down. People were talking behind your back. People were criticizing you. And then all of a sudden, one of your marketing ideas works. That is my heroin. That is my crack. That is like what I live for. And I just go and sit in my car and I would just like take it all in, look at the flyer and just like, I did it. Now scale this son of a bitch to the moon. badassswipefile.com. badassswipefile.com. Leanne at badassmillionaire.com. If you're interested, do it today. If you're not interested, that's good as well. selling a swipe file is long past a priority of mine. It used to be. I used to be relentless. I was like, I'm gonna raise $10,000 for the animal shelter. I'm gonna raise $10,000 for the food bank. I'm gonna raise $10,000 for the Rotary Club. So I used to be like, man, I gotta sell as many as I can. But now I do my giving through different things, through time and energy and teaching, and I'm in a safe harbor position, so I'm good in that area too. So it's for a different reason. I want you to buy the swipe file so you can transform your business. I want you to invest in the swipe file so you can build your own world. But as far as just for money, that's not something that's really on my mind. That's for sure. So that's it. BadassSwipeFile.com. Leanne at BadassMillionaire.com. Looks like the ice age is here in Southwest Florida, by the way. The ski jackets, the bomber jackets are out at Dunkin' Donuts. The hats, the winter hats, I love it. And everybody talks to me, oh, Michael, cold. I come from Canada, right? They're like, oh, 58 degrees yesterday, Michael, cold. I love it. I'm like, yep, not long to polar bears are roaming the streets. Jimmy Carter said in the 70s, global cooling. And then that sweetheart Al Gore brought us global warming. And when that didn't work out, now we're into climate change. Creepy Joe Biden and co. are bringing us our global change. My dad always reminds me of that Time magazine cover in the 1970s where they talked about global cooling, the end of the earth in terms of global cooling. That polar bears would be walking on the streets in New York City. And this was Time magazine, a respected magazine at the time. Think about that for a minute. Polar bears would soon be walking on the streets of New York. And you can sell this. You can sell this to Goofy anytime, all day, every day. Global warming, global cooling, climate change, the icebergs, it's all coming to an end. But just, my friend, follow the money. Just follow the money. God, the environment's critical and we need to do what we need to do to live in harmony. I'm all for that. I'm all for simplicity. I'm all for using our resources with respect, but I'm not for the virtue signaling. I'm not for the chasing the dollar. I'm not for the fear mongering. I'm not for the latest manufactured crisis. Yeah, that's not for me. Polar bears in New York City. Now, when you're watching this video now could be seen somewhere else, and they'll talk about how this was the day that the ice age came to Southwest Florida. Man, 58 degrees right now, and we'll see how the locals deal with this today. Emery will be walking around with shorts and a t-shirt and no shoes today. BadassSwipeFile.com. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that'll change yours. Be relentless.